You say Donald Trump in command in terms of the early results as you respond via newsmaxpolls.com. It's worth noting what Mr. Trump had to say about becoming commander-in-chief to a specific query saying that some military officers might not follow his orders dealing with enhanced interrogation techniques or torture if those officers deemed the request to be illegal. Listen to what Donald Trump had to say about what's at stake and how he would handle that as commander-in-chief.
Can you imagine these people, these animals over in the Middle East that chop off heads, sitting around talking and seeing that we're having a hard problem with waterboarding? We should go for waterboarding, and we should go tougher than waterboarding.
But targeting terrorist families?
And I'm a leader. I'm a leader. I've always been a leader. I've never had any problem leading people. If I say do it, they're going to do it. That's what leadership is all about.
And what this discussion is all about is hearing different opinions, and we certainly have them tonight and this is not a reflection on political philosophy, but from left to right on your screen, Steve Malzberg from Newsmax, New York, from Newsmax, Washington, Michael Patrick Flanagan, and Skyping in from Northern Virginia, Reagan biographer Craig Shirley. Michael Patrick Flanagan, to you, not only my old colleague on Capitol Hill from the class of '94, but before that, you're a Gulf War veteran, and you also returned to Iraq. So, Mike, I'm interested in your analysis of what Donald Trump had to say about being commander-in-chief.
His comment about they'll follow me, they'll do more. Surfacely, it sounds like a weak answer, but you have to look at the context of the man. And this is what's so interesting about Donald is he's not a professional politician. And so he's not held to the standard of rigid conformity. You have to say the same thing every time or the press will punish you for it. He has a flexibility in what he does because he's responsible to shareholders or to others. And as long as his actions don't waver, you're okay. And you can say different things at different times to get different people's attention. And I will tell you, in the Middle East, they think that the niceties that we observe about the Geneva Convention are a sign of enormous weakness. Doesn't mean we should abandon it, but it also doesn't mean we need to walk around and beat our breast about how fair and kind and honest we are either. And to that end, I will tell you also that the biggest drone killer out there is Barack Obama, but he never talks about it. And you want to talk about a war crime, the world talks about his drone attacks as a war crime, but you don't hear it talked about that way here. I think Trump went close to that sort of usage today of tough language, but we'll see what actually happens.
To the Reagan biographer, Craig Shirley, was that answer in its own way Reagan-esque, Craig?
Yeah, I think so. Is that Reagan understood that the job of the President of the United States is to protect the freedom and security and peace of the American people. That is the first most important responsibility. Everything else after that is academic. And Reagan did act unilaterally on a number of occasions, sending troops into Grenada, sending troops into Lebanon, arming the Contras, although later that was subjected to congressional approval. But then he also acted to help the Velvet Revolution and the indigenous freedom fighter movements in the Eastern Bloc without getting congressional approval. Reagan understood the Constitution, but he also understood the office of the President of the United States, and the job of the President of the United States is to lead. However he may have to do it. Sometimes women and children are involved, but those are the casualties of war. He signed an executive order when he was president, giving direction to the Pentagon that the officers must conduct themselves as officers and gentlemen when in war zones. But he also understood, too, that the nature of terrorism is such that you have to go to extraordinary measures sometimes.
Craig Shirley, we appreciate the historical perspective brought into the here and now. I want to thank you for your time tonight. Steve Malzberg, you have not only proximity to New York, heck, you're at Newsmax New York tonight, but some might say you have a New York state of mind. You've talked to Donald Trump quite a bit. Does his streetwise eloquence ring true, you believe, to the average voter in the Republican Party?
Absolutely. Which other candidate of between the Republicans and the Democrats, you could throw them in there, would has the guts to say that these people cutting off heads are animals? I mean, he called them animals, and they are animals. I mean, that resonates. That's what people want to hear because that's what people believe. And whether or not, if he's going to order them to do something that's blatantly against the law, maybe Donald is under the assumption, or when he heard the question, that the law would change by then. But whether or not, we have a president right now who breaks the law constantly, and there are people who are saying that if he orders Gitmo closed against the will of the Congress, against the law, that there are military officers who will not carry out those orders. Yet you don't hear the media getting hysterical about that or even bringing it up. So I think everything Trump says about this issue and the Muslim issue and the terrorist issue, he's the only one who talks like he talks, and that's what people want to hear.
The gift of saying what people are thinking. Michael Patrick Flanagan, final 30 seconds to you, sir, for that Chicago frame of reference.
I'll tell you a quick story, 30 seconds. I'm going to do it as fast as I possibly can. I'll use my quick Chicago speak. When I was nominated in 1994, the party opposed me. In fact, they went so far as to ask me to get out of the race so that they could put someone in who was electable. And I spent the next several years of my life running against the Republican Party, and the Democrats and the independents loved me for it. Donald should now step out of the shadows and actually run against the establishment out loud. He will draw people to his side like he can't imagine, and he will marginalize and demonize the party core, and it will be a wonderful thing for him. And that will be the coming together of the country that we're looking for.
And on that hopeful, optimistic, and historically relevant note, Michael Patrick Flanagan, we thank you for your perspective from Newsmax, Washington. Obviously, we want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. Dick Morris, John Zogby, Craig Shirley, Roger Stone, John Gizzi, Steve Malzberg, Michael Patrick Flanagan, as I mentioned earlier, Betsy McCoy, Joe Pags, and most of all, you. We'll be looking for you tomorrow night on Newsmax Prime. In the interim, stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.